Today I'd like to talk about the Space Shuttle Discovery and its special place in the National Reconnaissance Program. Before I begin, I'd like to state that all documents in this presentation were obtained via the Freedom of Information Act and were appropriately declassified by the National Reconnaissance Office. These documents can be accessed on their website at www.nro.gov. First and foremost, as the 1980s started, the shuttle program became integral to the National Reconnaissance Program, or NRP. Within his first year, President Ronald Reagan signed National Security Decision Directive No. 8, stating that the Space Transportation System will be the primary launch system for military and civil missions. NSDD 164, signed at the peak of the shuttle program, stated DoD's commitment for the next decade. However, even before the first shuttle launch, the NRO had affected the program profoundly. During a 1997 oral history interview, Dr. Hans Marks, the director of the NRO from August 1977 to October 1979, stated that the shuttle's cargo bay dimensions were sized to fit the KH-9 hexagon satellite. Shuttle Orbiter 103, later renamed Discovery, was specifically mentioned in NRO documents about the West Coast launch site at Vandenberg Air Force Base. Discovery was to be home stationed at Vandenberg using Space Launch Complex 6, Slick 6, to launch into polar orbit. Now, Discovery's original rollout weight was nearly 6,800 pounds less than the Shuttle Columbia, mostly due to construction modifications and newer materials. However, this lesser weight provided an advantage for launching satellites into polar orbit. The NRO's timeline for Discovery assumed an East Coast launch in summer 1983 and a June 1984 launch from Vandenberg. In reality, Discovery's first East Coast launch slipped to August 1984, and its first DoD payload mission, STS-51C, launched in January 1985. Plans for the first Vandenberg launch moved far to the right into mid-1986. As stated within declassified documents, Discovery's first launch from Vandenberg was to launch an advanced intelligence satellite. Its name is redacted within the documents, but clues to its size and program office are sprinkled throughout other FOIA-released documents. The processing time for Discovery at Vandenberg was following a timeline for a satellite launch there aboard a Titan 3C heavy-lift rocket. No Titan 3C ever launched from Vandenberg. The closest rocket was a Titan 3D, which was basically a 3C without a trans stage. Interestingly enough, the Titan 3D launched Hexagon and its follow-on. The NRO's Program B is mentioned in memos detailing support to that program by the Manned Spaceflight Engineer Program. MSEs were essentially military astronauts for the DoD, not NASA, within the shuttle program. Program B was one of 4 alphabet programs within the NRO. This program was the Central Intelligence Agency's portion of the NRP associated with imaging satellites, specifically electro-optical imaging satellites. The NRO's Review and Redaction Guide lists the CIA connection to Program B's research and the designator of the first electro-optical imaging satellite, the KH-11. While the launch date for the first KH-11 is included in the Review and Redaction Guide, other declassified sources specified that the only launch on that day in 1976 from Vandenberg was aboard a Titan 3D rocket. While Discovery was poised to lift some critical intelligence payloads into orbit for the NRP, fate reared its ugly head in early 1986. The explosion of the Space Shuttle Challenger and the death of its 7 astronauts permanently derailed plans to launch from Vandenberg. Slick 6 was mothballed, and NRP payloads were placed back aboard expendable rockets. The development of the Titan IV heavy-lift rocket allowed a shuttle-like lift capability for later NRP payloads. The Space Shuttle Discovery has had a storied history, entering service in 1984 and retiring in 2011 as the oldest and most accomplished spacecraft in the U.S. fleet. The Smithsonian Institute's webpage states that Discovery flew every kind of mission the Space Shuttle was meant to fly, and there is little to contradict this. But imagine the story Discovery could tell if it had fulfilled its intended part in the National Reconnaissance Program.